Welcome to the Everyday English Podcast. I'm your host, Mark, and today we are diving into a topic that affects every single one of us: how to actually achieve our goals. We've all been there. It's New Year's Day or a Monday morning, and we set these massive, ambitious goals. We say, I'm going to lose 20 pounds, I'm going to learn a new language in 3 months, or I'm going to read a book a week. But then, a few weeks later, the motivation fades and we find ourselves right back where we started. Why does that happen? Well, today's episode is titled Small Habits, Big Changes, the Secret to Reaching Your Goals. And to help us unpack this, I'm thrilled to welcome our guest, Dr. Diana Vance, a behavioral psychologist and author of the new book, The Compound Effect of Daily Routines. Diana, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me, Mark. It is an absolute pleasure to be here, especially on the Everyday English podcast, because language learning itself is one of the best examples of how small habits can lead to massive results. I'm really excited to dive into this with you and your listeners.
I love that you mentioned language learning right out of the gate, because many of our listeners are trying to improve their English every single day. But before we get into the specifics, let's look at the big picture. Your core philosophy is that we focus too much on the goals themselves and not enough on the systems or the habits that get us there. Can you explain what you mean by that?
Absolutely. Think of a goal as your destination on a map. If you want to drive from New York to Los Angeles is your goal. It's important to know where you're going, of course, but staring at the map and wishing you were in Los Angeles won't move the car. What moves the car is the system, pressing the gas pedal, steering, maintaining the engine, and staying on the road hour after hour. In life, your goals are about the results you want to achieve, but your habits are about the processes that lead to those results. If you completely ignored your goals and focused only on your daily habits, would you still get results? The answer is almost always yes.
That's a really powerful shift in perspective. So if a coach ignored the goal of winning a championship and focused only on what their team did at practice every day, they'd probably still get a great result.
Exactly. In fact, focusing too much on the goal can actually be counterproductive. When you focus only on the grand final outcome, the gap between where you are now and where you want to be feels enormous. It can feel overwhelming, which leads to procrastination. But when you break it down into a tiny daily action, a small habit, it becomes manageable.
You talk about the concept of getting 1% better every day. Mathematically, that sounds incredible if you compound it over a year. How does that look in real life?
It's the concept of continuous improvement. If you can improve by just 1% each day for an entire year, you will end up 37 times better by the time the year is over. Conversely, if you get 1% worse each day, you'll decline almost down to zero. The problem is that small habits don't seem to matter much in the moment. If you study English for 15 minutes today, you aren't suddenly fluent tomorrow. If you go to the gym today, you don't wake up with a perfect physique tomorrow. Because the immediate feedback is so small, we often dismiss these minor actions. We think, what's the point? It's not working. But the magic happens when these small habits compound over months and years.
It's like bamboo, right? It spends years growing its roots underground, showing nothing above the surface, and then suddenly it shoots up 80 feet in a matter of weeks.
That is the perfect analogy, Mark. Behavioral scientists call this the plateau of latent potential. You are putting in the work, you are building the foundation, but you aren't seeing the results yet. People often get discouraged during this phase and give up. They call it a failure, but really, the effort isn't wasted. It's just being stored. When you finally break through that plateau, people will look at you and say, wow, look at that overnight success. But you know that it was the result of hundreds of tiny, unseen daily choices.
So how do we actually build these small habits? For our listeners who are trying to practice English daily, or anyone trying to start a new routine, what is the practical framework? How do we make a habit stick?
To understand how to create a habit, we have to look at the habit loop, which consists of 4 steps: cue, craving, response, and reward. Every habit you have, good or bad, goes through these 4 stages. If we want to build a good habit, we need to manipulate these steps. First, the cue. This is the trigger that tells your brain to start the behavior. To make a good habit stick, you need to make it obvious. Don't just say, I'm going to study English tomorrow. Say, tomorrow at 8 a.m. when I sit down at my kitchen table with my morning coffee, I will open my English app and practice for 10 minutes. You are tying the new habit to a specific time, location, and an existing anchor habit, having your coffee. This is called habit stacking.
Habit stacking. I love that term. So you're essentially piggybacking a new habit onto something you already do automatically every day.
Precisely. It reduces the cognitive load. You don't have to decide when to do it. The environment decides for you. The second step is the craving, which is the motivational force. To increase the craving for a good habit, you need to make it attractive. You can use temptation bundling here. For instance, tell yourself, I am only allowed to listen to my favorite English podcast while I'm doing the dishes or walking on the treadmill. You pair something you need to do with something you want to do.
That makes total sense. It creates a positive association with the habit. What about the third step, the response? That's the actual behavior we perform, right?
Yes, the response is the action itself, and the rule here is crucial. Make it easy. Human nature always follows the path of least resistance. We naturally gravitate toward the option that requires the least amount of work. So if you want to practice a habit, friction is your enemy. You need to reduce the friction. If you want to practice guitar in the morning, don't leave it packed away in its case in the closet. Put it on a stand right in the middle of your living room. If you want to study English vocabulary, leave your book open on your desk before you go to bed. Conversely, if you want to break a bad habit, you make it difficult. If you watch too much TV, unplug it after every use, or put the remote control in a different room.
It's all about designing your environment so that the good habits are the easiest choices available to you.
Exactly. Environment design is incredibly powerful. We often praise people for having immense willpower, but the truth is, highly disciplined people don't actually rely on willpower all day. They just structure their environment so they don't have to use it. They don't leave cookies on the kitchen counter if they are trying to eat healthy.
That relieves a lot of pressure, honestly, because willpower can feel like a finite resource that runs out by the end of a long workday. Now, what about the final step of the loop, the reward?
The fourth step is the reward, and the rule here is to make it satisfying. The first three rules, make it obvious, make it attractive, make it easy, increase the odds that you will perform the behavior this time. The fourth rule increases the odds that you will repeat the behavior next time. The human brain evolved to prioritize immediate rewards over delayed rewards. Bad habits are easy to form because the reward is immediate. Eating a donut tastes good right now, even if the consequence is weight gain later. Good habits are hard because the cost is immediate, but the reward is delayed. To combat this, you need to give yourself a small, immediate reward for completing your good habit. It could be something as simple as crossing it off a habit tracker. There's a deep psychological satisfaction in checking a box or seeing a streak grow.
I can absolutely vouch for that. Seeing a 30-day streak on a language app makes you feel like you've accomplished something substantial, and you desperately don't want to break that streak. It becomes a game.
Yes, it taps into our desire for progress, and that brings us to another vital point regarding identity. The ultimate goal of any small habit isn't just to achieve a result, it's to shift your identity. True behavior change is actually identity change. Anyone can force themselves to go to the gym once or twice or study a language for a week. But when you start to view yourself as an active person or a language learner, your behavior naturally aligns with that identity. Every time you perform a small positive habit, you are casting a vote for the type of person you want to become. You don't need a perfect record to win an election, you just need the majority of the votes.
Wow, casting a vote for the type of person you want to become. That is a beautiful way to put it, Diana. It means even if we slip up one day, because life happens, we haven't ruined everything. We just need to make sure our next vote is a good one.
Precisely. Missing once is an accident. Missing twice is the start of a new bad habit. That's a golden rule. If you miss a day, don't beat yourself up. Just focus on not missing the second day. Consistency is far more important than perfection. Doing a shortened version of your habit is always better than doing nothing at all. If you only have time to read one page of your book, read one page. If you only have 5 minutes to study English, study for 5 minutes. It keeps the identity alive.
This has been an incredibly enlightening conversation, Diana. To wrap things up for our audience, if someone wants to start applying this today to reach their goals, whether it's mastering English, improving their health, or advancing their career, what is the first step they should take right after listening to this episode?
My advice would be to pick just one habit that is so small it feels ridiculous to say no to it. If you want to start exercising, your habit should be putting on your running shoes and walking out the front door for 2 minutes. If you want to master English, your habit should be learning just one new words a day or listening to one short podcast clip. Scale it down. Master the art of showing up before you worry about optimizing the performance. Once the habit is established and automatic, you can easily build upon it. Big changes truly do come from the smallest beginnings.
Master the art of showing up. I love that. Dr. Diana Vance, thank you so much for sharing your time and your wisdom with us today on the Everyday English Podcast. This has given our listeners and myself so much practical advice to work with.
Thank you for having me, Mark. It was wonderful. And to all the listeners out there, keep showing up one small habit at a time.
And thank you to all of our listeners tuning in. Remember to check out Diana's new book, The Compound Effect of Daily Routines. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel for your daily dose of English and inspiration. Until next time, keep practicing and make those small changes count. Bye for now.